First up is the roll call. Council at Large Cummins.
Here.
At Large Postian.
Here.
Council Ward number 1 Hembry.
Here.
Ward number 2 Helm.
Here.
And Ward number 3 McNeil. All right, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I want to thank everybody. I'm currently out of state, so that's why I'm not sitting up there. So I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight and having any patience with any type of technical glitches that we might incur. First up is the agenda, and if there are no changes to the agenda, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion. Second.
McNeil with the first and Cummins with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins.
Yes.
All right, then we'll go down to the communications. We do have Mike Boyle, who is he is on the agenda tonight. If he is there, would you make your way to the podium? But is he not there?
No.
Let's see, online. No, I don't see him online either. So if he happens to come in the next couple of seconds, we'll allow him to talk. But other than that, if there's anybody else who would like to address the council, this would be your time. I don't see anybody getting up either, and
He was thinking next week, like the regular council meeting.
I know what I'm talking
Okay. No, we're good.
all right, then we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda. These are items that can be enacted with one motion. It's the approval of a drip request from Nicole Rock at 323 Cedar Street. It is the approval of a trip request for Amy Lynch at 101 Cedar Street. Do any of these need to be pulled out? Seeing there is none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Cummins with the first and Postian with the second.
Postian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm.
Yes.
All right, so first under city business is discussion of possible action that would concern a revolving loan fund for Amy Lynch that would be doing business as the groom station. Linda, are you here? I couldn't see you. Okay, thank you. Yes.
It's at the other end of the room. Okay, so this is another exciting business that's coming to town. Amy Lynch, and I'm sure many of you know this, has owned the groom station in West Branch for 26 years. And her business is doing quite well, but she decided to come to Tipton. And she has bought Mike O'Donnell's building at 101 Cedar Street. And she would like the city to help her buy new equipment because she needs now Dell equipment because she's got to leave her equipment in West Branch and is buying new equipment to come here in Tipton. The amount that she's asking for is $50,000. The cost is $66,131.40. She does meet the 25% that she is required to also be a part of. We've been working really hard to keep with the vet clinic going to the old Case building and then having another clinic, an animal clinic coming to the south end of town and making an anchor down there. We have worked really hard to get this to happen. So I'm hoping that you will agree with that. Again, her interest would be 0.5% for 7 years. The payment would begin June 1st, 2023. It does take our attorney a little bit of time to get the paperwork done, so I like to be fair about that. And so she is requesting assistance with this new business in Tipton.
If I could just
Oh,
add,
yeah,
if I
certainly.
could add to that. This, like the vet clinic loan, exceeds the normal cap that we use, the 10,000. We talked about this as the vet clinic was deciding to relocate. At first, this was an idea that we presented to them, that if they brought in something into the old vet clinic or the current vet clinic building, we would up what we usually do to the 50,000 and make sure that a compatible business came in. So then we'd have two businesses each across the street. And we ran that past the finance committee back when we ran the idea of the veterinary clinic loan. But we thought we were talking about the vet clinic people back then. But it turns out that this is as good a deal as that would have been. A well-established business, a lot of traffic for that type of business, a lot of demand for that type of business. So we're hoping the council, or at least the committee, remembers that we talked to them about this type of loan, this type of amount, and that you'll continue with what we had talked about before.
And then she also is going to, obviously, she's doing renovation to the building besides buying the building. She's invested a lot for our community. Anybody have any questions for me?
I'll make a
All right.
motion.
Seeing that there are no questions, is there a motion to go into this loan agreement with the groom station?
Motion.
Cummins with the first and McNeil with the second.
Neal,
Yes.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome, sounds good. Another business. Be great for our town. All right, next up is discussion of possible action that concerns the financing of the Cedar Street Highway 38 project, and Maggie Berger is there. Thank you for standing up, Maggie Berger. Mr. Wagner?
Hello, everyone. I'm Maggie with Spear Financial. I have laid a couple-page memo here in front of you that I want to just take some time. So we've been working with the administration of your city over the last couple of weeks, along with the engineer on this Highway 38 project. We did ask the engineer, the city asked the engineer for a breakdown by different sources of funds that we could use, meaning, are we doing stormwater? Are we doing sewer? Are we doing water? There were all these conversations going on. We had previously identified in our conversations that we could be using TIP for this project, for part of the repayment of this project. So this is what we've sort of come down to, and this is what we are suggesting. I do want to note that the amount that we are suggesting you borrow for is not only for the Highway 38 project, but there is also an alley project that has paving and stormwater that need to be included, that need to be borrowed as well. So it would be pertinent to do that at the same exact time. And again, stormwater paying stormwater, paving being paid from what we'll call TIP to debt service, actually debt service in the case of the alley itself. So with that, we are recommending per our memo that you would borrow a total size of $3,620,000. That does include the cost of issuance of the bond. So that's Spear Bond Council getting a rating due to the size of this, so going through that process. If we look at that, the difference to be funded by the city, if we look at that $3,620,000 number, when we figured out all the numbers based on the expenses and the revenue meaning DOT, what the lump sum coming from them was, Consolidated Appropriations Act, and then some sewer ARPA funds. So ARPA funds paying for some of the sewer portion of this project, we come up with an amount of $3,561,000. Going back through their figures, the city did recognize that they had approximately $464,000 of remaining GO funds from a prior bond issue. all of those GO funds under that prior bond issue, and you had done that bond issue at an amount maybe higher than we thought you were going to need, so we had some wiggle room in there. Those funds were for street water, sewer, storm water. Those purposes could be interchangeable. So we knew that we could deduct that amount off of the borrowing as well. So that takes down the approximate amount that you need to borrow at about $3.1 million for the actual Highway 38 project. The alley project, that again is about $443,000 between the two ways. I wanted to sort of give you sort of a breakdown of how we're anticipating to pay this. So I picked the fiscal year 27 payment. In the back side of this front sheet is an estimated debt service schedule that we'll sort of look at. But if we look at fiscal year 27, the total debt service amount that year is $375,300. And this is on the front page here. We know that the city, starting in fiscal year 25, can ask for approximately $180,000 of TIF funds and continue to ask for those TIF funds from your original TIF area going forward year after year. You have no availability to ask for fiscal year 24 because those funds have already been asked for. They were asked for by December 1st of last year. So we're arranging the payment as such that you could ask for $180,000 in TIF funds. Stormwater funds that year, that payment would be about $55,950. Brian can correct me, but I believe you collect over $100,000 a year in stormwater revenues from the system. And so this amount is what we're talking about needing, and this is amount that finances the stormwater portion over 20 years. So that's as far out as we can go on that stormwater portion and getting us as little, numbers against what you're currently collecting. Water funds would be about $32,000 a year. And then there are some electrical pieces to this. So that would be about $7,775 per year for that fiscal year of 2027. Then we get down to the debt service levy. So everyone knows debt service levy, what means property taxes. So I have it asterisked and I have it in red because I want to read the statement right below that. The city will pay off 2015 GO bonds. So the 2015 GO bonds will pay off in 2026. The last payment of that 2015 debt in 2026 is $108,150. That means you are freeing up $108,000 in your debt service levy. We can confirm that between other debts falling off in the next couple of years, that debt coming off, and that we haven't backloaded or wrapped any additional debt that you have outstanding around this amount, there will be a reduction in the debt service levy by that $108,000 if you were to do nothing else. So that's where we're saying we would wrap in now in fiscal year 27 would be the first time we would use debt service levy for this payment of the debt. And then that really what that means is it should not result in any increase in a debt service or levy tax rate for you, the city, the citizens, what you're paying. The only way that that is going to make a difference in the debt service from a negative effect is if we have decreasing valuations in the city. That will affect everything. Obviously, that would increase all of your levies across the board. If the state government, as they are proposing, makes drastic changes to the way that you can levy in the budget, that could have a negative effect. But from the standpoint of how the law is written today, you will reduce the debt service payment in 2027. So we built this schedule around that. And if you want to flip to the back page, you sort of can see that because in the first couple of years, we're only making $226,000 payments, $279,000, $274. Then all of a sudden we jump up to $375, $371, and this is on the far right under the fiscal total of payments. Those first 3 years, 24, 25, and 26, all of these other sources are paying for the bonds. It's not until we get to fiscal year 27 that we would be asking the debt service levy or the property tax levy to pay on these bonds. That property tax levy then portion would actually run from 2027 through 2037, so about 11 years is how long that would be paying. And down below, I've kind of given you that the 180,000 would run through 2037. Just so everyone understands is when we look at this, we ask the city, you know, how much can you afford to pay from water every year? How much can you afford to pay from storm water every year? What is the affordability of the TIF? And that's that 180,000. What we do then is we take all of those numbers and we create schedules based on all of those different sources of revenue and how much they're representing of the bond issue. We take all of those and give you all these breakout schedules, and then we just lay the breakout schedules on top of one another. And that's how we get to this schedule that says 270, 275 in the first couple, 3 years. Then we go to the 300, and then you notice that in 2037, when we're talking about the TIF disappearing and the debt service, the payments drop dramatically to around that 87 to 89,000. And that's when we just are using water and stormwater left to pay, because those are going to be paid over a 20-year period. The one thing Brian asked me to talk about on page 2 also was that we've got a line drawn with the words call on June 1, 2031. That is the optional redemption date on the bonds. As you can see, interest rates on our bond projections are running from a 4% to a 5%. There's probably no one sitting on the council that has issued at those types of rates in the most recent future. It's been 2006 since we've seen interest rates like this. So the call feature is very important. What the call feature means is that if at that time interest rates are lower, the city would be able to refinance the debt on that date or after that date. The call feature does not mean that anyone can call the bonds in on you. So the people holding your bonds, they can't say you owe us all your money. They can't balloon the payment on you at that time. That call feature is at your option only. If you had money ahead, someone won the power and gave you a bunch of money to set in the bank, if you had money ahead at that time, you could pay down on the bonds, you could pay off the bonds. So let's just say that the stormwater revenue increases by that point in time. Let's say you have some new housing or you've increased that rate and you decide that you want to use some of that stormwater to buy down a couple, 3 of those final year's payments. You could do that at that time as well. So you can pay off the debt. But I think the biggest takeaway is based on today's interest rates of this 4 to 5%, you definitely would be able to refinance at that time if interest rates were lower. We do those calculations for you. We don't, when we do a refinance, and some of you may have been a part of that in the past here with the city, when we refinance, we do not extend the maturity beyond what the original bonds were set to mature in. So we take it from that approach. We are recommending that you'd have a competitive bond sale for this on May 1st of 2023, and that just means that on June 1st of 2023, the city would have their money for the project. The bigger component to that is then working with your engineer to see when you would need to make debt or make payments for your parts of the contract on this DOT contract. In the interim, between June 1st and when you have to make payments, you can invest the dollars. And Melissa and I have had a conversation about this. You know, for many years when you were paying very low interest rates, there were also no reinvestment rates. CDs were 0.25%. Money markets were 0%. Now you can make money on all of those things. So you will be able to take these dollars and invest them, which makes you some interest to not only help offset these payments, but also could be used for the project itself if there were any cost overruns. It's a whole lot of information in a short amount of time, but I think our biggest takeaway here is, and why I made it red in the center of the page is, we believe with all the different funding sources you have available to you, you can do this project without having a negative effect or an increase in your property tax levy if we wrap the debt around the existing debt. It should be noted, and not to go into further detail, but it should be noted that then in 2030, you have additional debt dropping off. We didn't raise the debt service levy amount. We're sticking with that 100,000 throughout. So after about 2030, you'd free up actually about another 150,000 of debt service levy. And we're just gonna leave that on the table. That means that maybe at that time, you'll be able to reduce the debt service levy, or if there's other projects that come along that can only be paid with debt service levy, that's where you'd be able to fold those projects in as well. It gives you some flexibility when you get to that time period in 2030. What kind of questions does everybody have for me? No extra payments can be made before June 1st of 2031. You can be planning, you can be setting money aside, you can be putting money in an investment account, but nothing can be actually made until 2031. Federal government doesn't allow for it right now. There was the idea of advanced refundings, or we used to be able to refund in advance. The current tax code that was adopted in 2017 does not allow for it. Don't quote me, but that definitely is on the block to be brought back. So if interest rates are lower ahead of that, there's definite conversation at the federal level, especially with rising interest rates, that needs to be brought back into the tax code at the federal level. So we'll have to wait and see. But right now, we have to say nothing before 2031.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Maggie or Brian regarding the Highway 38, the funding for these for this whole big project?
Does this include alleys? Did I hear that right?
What it includes is the estimate for the alley that's the downtown alley between 6th and 4th. It doesn't commit you to do that project. It just provides funding for it if you choose to.
So that's why, so we'll know more about the alleyways later to vote on,
Right,
so we can approve the funding and then determine alleys later.
right.
I'm good
Correct.
with that.
Yeah.
So that 400,000 isn't earmarked for that alley, it's just.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the 443,000 we're talking about is alley work. Again, you're gonna sell bonds and you're gonna hold a public hearing. And I do wanna say that you have on your next week's agenda setting a date of public hearing at 4.1 million. So that was before, that number was given to bond council before we determined that there were leftover bond funds that could be used for this Highway 38 project. So it's okay to have a public hearing in an amount higher than what you're actually gonna borrow at. Our recommendation is the borrowing today is at $3.6 million. So even setting a date of a public hearing at 4.1 doesn't mean you're going to borrow at 4.1. It just means that we gave them that number, and then we talked end of last week, and we were like, oh, we have these extra bond funds, we could use those, so we brought that number back down for the borrowing. So, and everything you're holding a public hearing on, we call it like an open book. It will not specifically refer to the Highway 38 project. It will say streets, water, sewer, stormwater, electrical. It will say sidewalks, street lighting, alleys. It will say all of that so that you can interchangeably use that money on additional projects in the future if there's leftover funds, or you change that, let's say, alleyway project.
All right. If there are no other questions for Maggie, is there a motion to approve the financing structure of this project?
Motion.
Second.
Cummins with the first and Poston with the second.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
yes,
Austin,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Maggie.
You.
Moving on down to number 3, it's a resolution that would accept a bid for the Highway 38 Cedar Street reconstruction project. We do have our engineers here as well. Mr. Wagner, if you want to introduce this real quick.
Yeah, John Burns and John Lutz are here from Origin, and John Lutz has made his way to the podium. John, would you like to talk about the results?
Sure. So this project had to be bid through Iowa DOT in order to use the federal funds. That's a requirement of that. So we packaged this project and had it bid through the DOT on February 21st. There were 8 bids. So you had a lot of interest in this project. The low bid was submitted by Triple B Construction Corporation for $6,202,939.40. There were 7 other bidders, and the top 5 bidders were basically within 10% of each other as well. So that means you did have a pretty competitive bidding situation. It wasn't such that people were just throwing in real high numbers or they didn't understand what they were bidding. So I was pleased with the close nature of all of the bids in the lower half. The bids did go up to, the lowest one was 6.2 million. They did go way up to 8.18. But according to DOT, you really don't have a choice other than to award to who they determined was the lowest responsible bidder, which they determined was Triple B Construction at the 6.2 million. Or you have to basically rebid that through the DOT. You can't say, well, I like the second low bidder better and use him. They won't let you do that. So if you, I can go into more detail. I'll just give you an indication of, what made the project increase from earlier bids. They did require, the DOT required that we would have vibration monitoring. So that threw another 50,000 onto the project. There was a bid item for that. Concrete really went up from even last year to this year. I was looking at the numbers and, they went up 20%, something like that. We had bid prices of $59 a square yard for 8-inch. Now it's up to $71.50. 10-inch was 73 last year. Now it's up to 90. And the 10-inch that made the cost go up actually $286,000. So it's a lot of this material price that's going up that's forcing prices up. Sewer pipe, storm sewer pipe was up about 20%, sanitary about 25%, sidewalk and whether it was 4 or 5 or 6 inches was quite a bit more. Copper went up a bunch of materials for that. Mobilization actually went down. That's not, contractor can put whatever he wants in his mob. And it went from 685,000 down to 531. So, well, he could move numbers back and forth, but I'm just saying that's one of them that went down considerably. And then another one that went down was replacement of unsuitable backfill, the rock that they throw back in the trench. The rock price actually went down a little bit, so that was a good thing. So that's just a summary that I give you on kind of unit prices that I saw that made it go up. So then with the finances in order, if you were to award this project, I would make the recommendation to award to Triple B for $6,202,939.40.
All right, and that's an award that we kind of have to, through the state, it sounds like, have to adhere to that. So are there any other questions for Mr. Lutz? Seeing there are none, is there a motion to approve this bid?
Motion.
So
McNeil.
I heard Postion, and who else?
McNeil was first, Bosch was second.
Awesome, thank you.
Cummins,
Yes.
Helm,
Yes.
Poston,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Hembry.
Yes.
All right, then the last item tonight, it's a discussion and possible action that would concern amendment number 4 to the agreement for engineering services for the pavement utilities improvements of the 2019 construction and the observation services on 38 from South Street to 130. Mr. Lutz?
Yes, so amendment number 3 was for doing the construction admin for the detour, construction admin and observation for that. That was considerably simpler than doing this construction admin here with the federal funds involved with it. So we prepared a proposal that included basically 2 sections here, construction admin. I'll go briefly through what's involved in that, and then construction observation, which includes the construction staking plus the on-site observation and person to conduct meetings and coordination. So in the construction admin, some of the things we do is we look at help the city form a contract with the contractor and have it blessed by DOT. There's a process that you have to go through with a system that's administered on the DOT website. We set up all of the documentation, spreadsheets and forms that are used with DOT format, and that's what we put all of the numbers on and submit them to the city and for their review as well. And then they get uploaded into what's called Doc Express with DOT. Everything is done online, even signatures. Now we don't send back and forth actually. Review documentation submitted by the contractor. He has to identify where he's getting all his materials. They have to be DOT approved materials for paving, steel, just all of this stuff, Buy America. Have their persons set up for traffic control technician. And just taking care of some other things, erosion control implementation plan. They're going to want to make sure we have the NPDES permit followed. Make sure all of their materials are approved using this Maple program, with basically a system where they have pre-approved materials. Have to attend a pre-construction meeting, have that set up. I anticipate that will be early April. Late start date is April 15th. We would need to do that in early April. I think we want to do that. And issue any instructions to the contractor on behalf of the owner. Do change orders. We need to do and review certified payroll. They have to use Davis-Bacon wages on this federal job. So we have to do wage interviews with the workers in the field and review and approve the certified payroll. Let's see, pay applications every month. Provide documentation of quantities. They want a form showing daily quantities on that. Substantial completion when we're to that second year, finalizing in October of 2024. Prepare materials for Iowa DOT to audit this whole job. There's a lot of material to audit here, all in order. We've had very good results with our firm's audits. We had one a couple months ago where the DOT looked at it and they blessed it, and there was actually no comments. And that's unusual, but we were able to do that. This coordination then during the audit with DOT, prepare record drawings so that everybody knows where the water and sewer's at, what to bill everything. And reimbursement forms for the city back to the DOT for once items are paid. So there's quite a bit involved in that construction admin part of it. The second part is construction staking. It's a little less involved, but you know, we're doing paving, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, water main, sidewalks. The sidewalks get pretty detailed downtown. They're not so detailed up until you get to Third Street and further north. But through the business section, there's a lot of staking for that. We'll provide a surface model for the contractor to use for the south end of the project when he's grading, so he can use machine control. And basically that's dozer controlled equipment. We don't necessarily need to stake all of that. That's very efficient. You don't want us to have to stake it. If it's not necessary, it's less expensive for them to have machine controlled equipment and do that. Then the next item is the construction observation. That's basically having the guy here. One of the bid items is to have a construction trailer. It's called the field office. Now, if we find a local office or business downtown to rent, you know, the field office could be there, but we haven't communicated with the contractor to do, you know, that. We can't communicate until after award for those sorts of things. But that's a possibility. Keeping meeting notes, having a pre-construction meeting, and having a qualified staff, leader style qualifications. Brian Wagner knows what that means.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
so then at the end, we do the weekly working day reports. They've got something like 260 days completed. It basically puts them at the end of the 2024 construction season, and then we inspect and submit a substantial completion letter, and then that completes the project. The total cost to do all of that is about 15% of the actual construction cost, total of $900,000, but it requires basically 100% time of construction observation and administration back in the office to do that. So that is our proposal for construction admin and observation. And that would be hourly. It's not a lump sum. Whatever we don't need to do, we don't do. In fact, yeah, we'd rather not be here later in the day if we don't need to be. So conscientious for that.
John, did the DOT pay for that?
The DOT agreed early on when we made the $2.5 million. We took the same percentage of what they were paying for versus what the city was paying for, and applying that to the construction admin at that time.
So this is ours.
So there is a chunk of money out of the $2.5 million that really would be applied to this in a sense. So.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for John or anything? All right. Is there a motion to approve this amendment number 4?
Motion.
Poston with the
approved.
first
Second.
and Cummins with the second.
Helm,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Embry,
Yes.
Cummins.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lutz. All right. So that brings us down to the reports, the mayor's report. I have nothing other than once again to thank everybody for still coming to the meeting. I'm not going to lie, it's a little different looking at the council meeting from this way. Council reports. committee, city manager,
Nothing tonight.
any department heads? All right, I don't see any movement, so that brings us down to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Poston with the first, and Cummins with the second.
Bastian,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yeah.
Hembry,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yeah.
Helm.
Yes.
All right, Amy. Hit the gavel. Well, we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.